Hoki mai Arno, welcome back. Newshub can reveal the number of complaints about migrant exploitation have increased more than sixfold in the last 5 years.
The government says that's because they've made it easier for migrants to report exploitation. But it comes as pressure mounts on the government to remove an immigration rule that binds workers to one specific employer. Political reporter Amelia Wade has the story.
This migrant chef was sold the Kiwi dream.
He treated like a slave. I am not a slave.
His restaurant boss had been approved by the government, but it was hell. He was trapped.
Never I go to outside in the building, on the building. I am just living in a small room.
He was being paid the $30 an hour required to meet the migrant work visa rules, but says his boss would go with him to an ATM and force him to give most of his wages back.
So, a day doesn't go by when we don't hear from an exploited worker.
Migrant workers took to the streets this month to protest the explosion in migrant exploitation, and Newshub can reveal just how bad it's become. 5 years ago, there were 150 complaints made about migrant exploitation. In 2021, a new helpline and web complaint tool was launched, and that year complaints leapt to 908. There were 905 last year. That's more than 2 a day.
Migrant worker exploitation has never been okay. I think it's more visible now than it's been in the past.
But in the same period, the government launched its new work visa, which binds an employee to one employer. That means it's very difficult for a worker to leave a bad boss for a better one.
The fundamental problem is when we are attaching and bonding migrant workers to a single employer.
The government's already been warned by many, including its own advisors, that tying migrants to one employer would increase exploitation.
Labor has been too focused on putting ambulances at the bottom of the cliff once exploitation happens, and we need to do more to prevent exploitation.
The visa was launched in order to avoid migrant worker exploitation. When we launched it, we said that we would keep a close eye on it and we'd keep it under review, and we will absolutely do that.
The government's claims there's been an explosion because they've made it easier to complain simply doesn't wash. The new migrant work visa was meant to prevent exploitation, but it appears to have done the opposite, meaning Labor, the party of the worker, has overseen an explosion in reported migrant exploitation. Amelia Wade, Newshub.